It was another application of where we've actually shown our ability to use technology to produce another variation of a useful digital twin. We twinned the pub.
That's amazing. You digital twinned the Winchester from Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
If we sign an NDA, can we show up at the pub?
Sure, you don't need an NDA. I can send you an invite.
Would love to.
We're a very welcoming establishment.
Mark, awesome.
Any one simple rule, Will, just keep your pants on.
Well, this is we can run with that too.
Well, hello and welcome to the stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation with guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarney, water strategy consultant, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, The Stream. And this week we are delighted to welcome Mark Kaney, who is the Director of Asset Management for Binnies. Mark, good to see you. How are you?
Gentlemen, good evening and good afternoon. How are you going?
Oh, you call us gentlemen. We're off to a great start. We could just stop right now.
Well, there we go. You see, you always start strong.
Could be the shortest episode of the stream in history.
But
good
the
to see you, Mark.
best.
Thanks. Bit of respect. Let's go.
Right. We'll take it.
I think we should actually raise a toast because we haven't been in person for almost 14 months now plus. And Mark, we both said, and Will, that we actually miss the pub, right? I mean, let's be honest with you. So I'd like to just kind of raise a glass, and we have, bearing in mind it is approaching 6 o'clock in the UK. And Will, what time is it there?
It is 10:41 Mountain Time, which is about an hour later than I usually start, guys. So,
Oh, in which case, chin chin, salute.
Chin chin.
Chin chin. Good to see you guys.
Hopefully not too far from now, we'll be able to do this in person.
I know, bring on the day, right? So, Mark, I want to start randomly because I've seen pictures of you on social media with you. I mean, you are perhaps better known as like a guru of asset management and AI, and we've had some fantastic conversations. But I saw something the other day when someone said, "What's the first thing you're going to do when you come back from lockdown?" And you put a picture of you playing a guitar in a packed pub, right? I think we need to talk about that as a matter of priority.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a semi-professional musician as well for the last 20, 30 years. And that is one of the things I have really missed is, being in that environment, being stood on stage with a load of people enjoying themselves, watching you play, the energy on the stage, the energy from the room. You cannot replicate that through Teams and things. And we've done our best to try and do that with virtual hookups and jams and different things, but it just is. It's like there's a blanket between you,
right?
And I think that's the thing. That's the thing I'm really looking forward to is the time when I can just get up there, turn the volume up, and get going again in front of a nice packed room of happy people. That will be really good.
I think there's that connection when there's a large group of people together. So the records behind you, I've seen you on these calls before, but I've never asked. What are they? You've got a couple of records. Talk us through that.
Yes, they're not mine. Obviously, if they were mine, I probably would be actually unemployed right now, given the state of the music industry.
I was going to say they'd probably be a lot closer to the screen if they were yours, right? You'd have them next to you.
Yes. No, these were a gift from a very good friend of mine. For my 21st birthday, actually. So they are the gold records for Queen's "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions" singles. And they record companies issue a load of these to not just the band, but obviously the producers and things. And every now and again, these things come up for auction. And a friend of mine, as I say, for my 21st birthday, got me them. So they have pride of place in my music room, which for the last 14 months has also been my office.
Amazing. In fact, I was what was I doing the other day? Cleaning the house with the broom, and we put on "We Will Rock You," and I thought I'd challenge anybody in the world to listen to that song without kind of doing a Freddie Mercury impression with the broom, with the microphone reaching out from Live Aid, and I thought it's a great song.
You just filmed your house; it probably would have looked like the middle bit in Mrs. Doubtfire then.
Or Complete Risky chaos. Business.
I was going to go with that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah. we can't unsee that one now.
No, definitely not. Not with yeah. That's
no. I'm sorry. Can we just cut that out of our?
We can't. It's unedited, right? We can't really cut anything out. So
we don't want to lose people.
Well, you guys put an advisory warning on these things anyway, don't you? So
good point. Good point.
There we go. It comes with a warning label.
But Mark, we actually hope that attracts people to it.
It probably will.
It's like, we want the right kind of viewers and listeners.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I mean, you talk about pubs and that, and everyone always talks about, the British relationship with alcohol. And the first thing we talk about is, never mind the economy and jobs, when can we go down the pub? That's one of the things that actually last year, I was trying to look for ways to keep my team connected and together as they were going through all of this. And one of the things we created using some of the collaborative tools like Teams and Zoom, and that was a virtual pub. We called it the Winchester, given the topic of that in the film, Shaun of the Dead. That's been a place where we can just post silly pictures and have discussions. We even had our virtual Christmas party there, where we had quizzes, games, like a competition for making cocktails, live music from a friend of mine.
Wow.
It was as good as we could do it, right? But I guess you could argue that it was another application of where we've actually shown our ability to use technology to produce another variation of a useful digital twin. We twinned the pub.
That's amazing. You digital twinned the Winchester from Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mark, a brilliant segue into, I almost said a brilliant segue into something serious, but maybe, I think we have been talking about something serious, which is, social interaction and pubs and music. So I don't know. Equally serious or less serious? I don't know.
I would say equally serious, given the amount of people I know who haven't worked since last March.
Right.
There's not just the venue and the performer. There's the bar staff, there's the cleaners, there's the lighting, there's the get in, the get out crew.
It's the ecosystem involved in live music, right? It's those independently employed audio engineers and lighting professionals as well, right?
Well, it is, and every different function that is there is impacted in a way because of this situation, and impacted in a different way. There's value created upstream and downstream of any particular role in any kind of anything that provides a service, really. Whether it be entertainment assets, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing, those impacts do migrate out.
And also the intangible, and I'm being serious here, of mental health. I mean, humanity needs the arts desperately, and, probably even more so now. So, that loss, I think we'll probably be trying to figure that one out for quite some time, the ability to go listen to live music,
It's all live music and also theatre and arts. And I had Andrew Lloyd Webber on a news program the other day, and he's talking, and they asked him, would you be able to, some of the bigger productions open at 50% capacity? And he said, it's just not financially viable. We need to be 80% plus with all the costs involved. And he went through the ecosystem of the actors, the makeup artists, everyone behind the scenes that make that kind of stage play happen. And they were talking through the environment and making it safe. And he said, we just want to get back up and running as soon as possible. We know we can do it safely. And let's not forget the thousands and hundreds of thousands of people involved in the arts. So you're right. It is a serious business, hospitality, to kind of get back up and running. So the Winchester, I've got a couple of questions about this. Normally in a typical pub, you kind of have certain locals. I mean, I kind of grew up working in pubs, and then from a waiter to becoming a barman, you kind of get these set characters at different pubs. So is that what happened with your team? You created this virtual pub, and some of them would kind of, you'd find a guy who was there asking for last orders and sitting at the bar, or was it not?
I think there were certainly kind of team members who took to it quicker than others. I'm guessing it probably scratched a bigger itch for them, you could argue. And I think you could get you always need the ones who would maybe start with the memes in the morning just to cheer people up and stuff like that. So yeah, I think different characters used it in a different way. I think so. Yeah, I think you could kind of, if you saw something pop up, you kind of had a good idea of who'd done it, or who was behind it. Luckily, obviously, with me being on there, they probably didn't want to show the boss that they're the actual character that's drunk by 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the end of the bar, because that probably wouldn't go down too well. But,
Right.
you know, as they always say, we're an international business, and I'm sure it's 5 o'clock somewhere, isn't it?
That's what they say, is 5 o'clock somewhere every day, right? So, Will?
I'm not going to let go of this one so easily. So if we sign an NDA, can we show up at the pub?
Sure, you don't need an NDA. I can send you an invite.
Would love to.
We're a very welcoming establishment.
Mark, awesome.
Any one simple rule, Will, just keep your pants on.
Well, this is we can run with that too. So I'm
So digital twins.
You like my vest?
Tom's failed attempt to get us off the concept of Will's.
Mark, you and I would be dangerous. So, Tom, what would you like to talk about regarding digital twins?
I think there is a segue here from the rules of wearing pants to digital twinning a pub and the benefits of digital twinning water assets, and Mark's role as head of asset management for Binnies. So we've kind of talked a bit about this before, and would it be safe to say that in terms of digital twinning entire assets within water utilities, things are still lagging behind other sectors? Perhaps we could use that as a segue to get the discussion going on this. As much as Will, I want to talk about your sartorial habits. And Mark's ruling on that, but
habits? Are they habits, Tom?
Let's get into that in our face-to-face. That'll be an interesting discussion.
Like I said, send out the calendar invite. I'm there. So
I think to your point, Tom, I think you're right. I think what I see is a lot of will to get there and to try and figure out how we make it happen. But there are certain things that are kind of, we have to work our way through as an industry, right? I think there's as a more conservative sector, one that's less likely to invest heavy in lots of R&D and take bigger risks due to the fact that this is critical resources that we're managing and there's danger of death and things. I do think there is a natural reticence to start to moving that. I also think that I think there are different paces. We know that quite a lot of organizations and things that work in the water sector are still quite siloed, right? So you might have some engineers with some cracking ideas, and they know some companies who can make it happen, but the supply chain aren't quite on the same page. So it's like that thing, like I asked you for an orange and you bought me a banana kind of thing, and they're like, what's all fruit in it? What's your problem? Right. So I think there's some of that's going on, and I also think one of the interesting things is like a digital twin for me is not a solution, it's an enabler. And I think when people get that in their heads, then we might see a different approach to adopting it, maybe. I don't know. Well, what do you think?
So you just triggered a thought, which I guess is a good sign, Mark.
I do it every now and then.
No, but yes. I mean, the dominant narrative in the world of public water utilities is that risk adverse, public health is at stake. It would seem to me that maybe and maybe you're doing this already, that we're not exactly having the right conversation around digital twins, in that it is a way to de-risk and to test, to shorten that time frame between new technologies knocking on the door and actually adoption. So am I on point here in terms of thinking about it that way and what you're seeing in the marketplace? And we're friends here.
I think so. I think what doesn't help is what I see is everyone kind of claiming that what they have is a digital twin because they know it's a hot topic, right? So it's like, if I want to sell some stuff, I'll label it a digital twin,
well, that's like blockchain. I mean, if you say, blockchain, God forbid cryptocurrency, then, people are paying attention. I think digital, and I was going to ask you a question about, the hype cycle in terms of where you see digital twins fitting. But I agree. I mean, there's some technologies and technology solutions and brands out there that are riding the wave of what's hot.
Yeah, I've seen some cracking examples of digital twin technologies and capabilities. I've also seen some stuff that not in a million years could it ever be a digital twin anywhere ever. It's like, really you're going to go down that route? Oh yeah, okay. Well, let's see where this goes. Nonsense. But I think that doesn't help companies, to your point about having that right conversation and about the use. And I liked what you were saying there around kind of de-risking it. And my mind comes to an example of, say, like Formula One, where they use kind of digital twins and simulations, not just to refine the asset and to make that optimum, but actually to de-risk the operation of the driver. The way a Formula One car works is the harder and faster you drive it, the more downforce it has. And unless you're driving it fast enough, the brakes don't get hot enough and they don't work properly. So it's kind of counterintuitive, right? You're telling the asset operator to drive as fast as they can at a concrete wall, and you're saying, don't worry, you won't die. Now, are you just going to trust me if I tell you that? Or if I say to you, go and do a simulation in this digital representation, and you'll prove to yourself that if you run at that wall at 200 miles an hour 3 times, you won't die. De-risks it, no?
Right. So, Tom, you're talking about the people side of the business, whether it's, Formula One or utilities or, industrial applications. So how do you tackle the people side of understanding the value of digital twins and sort of letting go of, our sort of very visceral reaction against digital technologies? I mean, this is a tech discussion and it's a people discussion.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be the right culture to kind of reach digital twin as an ambition. It's not a single solution, is it? A digital twin. It's a collection of different data points amassed over a certain period of time. But obviously having the culture enabled to kind of accept to get to that point is the key part of the puzzle that's often kind of left out.
Right.
Yeah. I think that the key there is insight. And if you think like a lot of, if we look at water companies and look at the regulated side, we used to take our insight from people who had X number of years experience or had been running an asset for however many years and things like that. That's where as decision makers, we took our insight from, right? We took it from people's experience and expertise.
Right.
A lot of organizations, not just in utilities, but globally now are moving to a more data-driven structure.
Right.
Says that actually it's not just like, Bob, who's been running the assets for 20 years. Bob knows what's going on. I'll ask Bob. There's data there, right? There's an evidence base it's consistent, it's repeatable, it's auditable, it's explainable.
Right.
It starts to build trust. And if you can provide that rich insight based on the data, often validated by Bob, who can go, that's right. And you trust your decisions more, right? You're going to take a value and a risk-based decision based on as much available information and insight as you can get, because that makes it safer, no?
Also, Bob, there's the Bobs that are due for retirement as well, right? So actually that's a key challenge facing a lot of utilities is kind of retiring, perhaps aging workforce. Having that digital twin in place, utilizing Bob's expertise before that date comes is highly important.
Just to jump in here, and I was going to go in a different direction, but I will restrain myself. So, when I was at Deloitte, they built up a body of work around artificial intelligence as the no-collar workforce. So thinking, and I really like that because it is really thinking about digital technologies as part of the team, as opposed to Bob's going to get replaced by, something out of a sci-fi movie. Well,
no,
not quite yet, if ever. And, that ability to think about these digital tools, including twins and, artificial intelligence and so on, as augmented intelligence, in addition to the team that makes you, there's actually a body of work out there that would say is you become more valuable to the organization if you are digitally savvy in the scheme of things. So I'm interested in your take.
I think that's really important. That's, when I look at the stuff that we do with our digital products and services, it's never a replace. it's an enhance and augment.
Right.
You know, we see this blend of cyber physical teams being the future. Think about it, right? Your OpEx budgets are constrained, and we all know that all of our good people have got way too much work on. But there's probably a certain amount of that work that you could call more transactional, low rent activities, stuff that they have to do. So at the very least, you start to digitalize that, get your AI, get some of your tools and components, RPA processes, to clear that off your decks so that you can spend actually the right amount of time doing the high value work that your expertise and your technical skill should be used for, because that's actually how we improve service and resilience, right? We don't do that by just paying a load of experts to sit generating reports, or, you know, it's bonkers. And we've got it. You know, when I look at our AI capabilities, we've got a virtual leakage engineer who can spot leaks. We've got a virtual site operator who can optimize sites. We're looking at a virtual asset management consultant who can help companies do their ISO 55K assessment, but they'll always work alongside a human teammate. Right. Because you need to think of it like a graduate. You wouldn't just leave a graduate and say, go do all that work. You've got to train them. You've got to make sure their outputs are good. You've got to coach them. It's the same with an AI, right? It's no use unless it's trained and managed the right way.
Should be seen as complementary, not supplementary or replacing even. I remember having a conversation with an innovation manager from a UK utility on using a quite well-known AI system. And we had this exact conversation. He said, Tom, the 2 or 3 people, I'm just basically repositioning them to more people-facing roles or something that requires more collaboration or creativity. This AI functions a specific purpose, and okay, it can make decisions that much quicker, but actually, when it's not replacing people, it's enhancing the team that we've already got.
So I'm going to scroll back to when we first met. I mean, Tom, I met you in Tokyo at IWA, but Mark, I met you at Aquatech Innovation Forum, and I met someone who was talking about this, you know, really this very issue, which is, well, how do you deploy artificial technologies, you know, digital technologies versus humans? And it was this discussion of EQ. It's like, when do you need knowledge, experience, and judgment, and that sort of social interaction dimension that AI can't deliver? So, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, I think we can craft a better value proposition. And Mark, you're probably doing this already around digital technologies, artificial intelligence as additive, not black and white, one or the other.
I think it's a phrase that's known, that they use it in the kind of technology side of this, which is human in the loop. But I think that is there's a non-technology aspect to that as well, which is to your point about that societal, cultural, you know, aspect and the context at which that capability has to operate in. An AI will only be able to operate on its own when it's operating solely with other AIs. Well, it's, you know, that's like that thing about driverless cars. They'd be fine if they were all driverless cars, but the moment you start mixing human and artificial decision making, chaos and death ensues. So I think that you know, and it's interesting that kind of mirrors human reality, right? Because what we're saying there is that often what you get is, with people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different experiences, it can at first be quite difficult because you've got to find that commonality. But actually, once you get over that, you start to find that the diversity of the group actually enhances its performance and what it can do. So we should think about cyber physical teams in that same way. Once we get used to each other, it'll get easier and we'll get better.
Right. The no collar team as part of the collar team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so Mark and Tom, there's definitely an article or two to be written about this.
I think so. I think there's, to your point, I think, you know, we need to reframe the discussion and make it less about tech and platforms and more about business outcomes, user stories, and trust and risk management and good decision making, good repeatable decision making.
So Mark, we always want to, you know, frame our discussions as, well, what do we do after this discussion? You know, how do we have an impact? You know, how do we make a difference? So Tom, I think we've committed to writing something with Mark.
There we go.
Sounds
trio byline article. I think it's interesting sorry, go on, Will.
We have to start writing it at the pub, though.
Can we start writing it at the Winchester? I mean, that could be the
I think we can do
start of the
that.
discussion.
That would work. I'm sure we could do that.
All right. Sorry.
Set a date and we'll get the drinks in and get cracking.
Yeah.
But just to add in, I've had some, Mark, you've kind of had some partnerships and involvement in the kind of the Earth observation space, right? In terms of using satellite data to augment human activity. And I think that's a really interesting space.
That's brilliant. Brilliant.
That we're looking at. And I've had some conversations with perhaps asset managers recently. And this phrase has come up repeatedly: you can't beat the accuracy of the human eye. And this phrase has come back to perhaps in teams of people that are resistant to this, adopting this technology. Whereas when you speak to the adopters and the kind of the forerunners, they said, look, I've got an asset that's 5 kilometers long. If it's a dam or embankment, I still have visual inspection teams and I still plan to use the human eye, but this is just going to tell them where to look. This is going to enhance our efforts. This isn't replacing the visual inspection team. And I think that's the really important part of the discussion, just to kind of row in with what you guys were saying.
I think that is an area that really, I love tech and gadgets and stuff, so that kind of gear really excites me. And we're developing, we've got a new product which, not to get all salesy, but that is around dams and risk management around dams. And it's when I was talking to the guys putting this together, and when we were talking to our reservoir panel engineers and stuff, and that fusion of the AI bringing the data sets down from the satellite imagery, and then the reservoir engineers and the consultants really contextualizing that, and it's really cool. It's going to generate this thing called a basal rhythm, which basically says that dams are alive. And these data sets, think of like your ECG as you sat in hospital. It generates something similar like that, but over vast distances, right? Because it gives you that ability to scale and to show at macro. If you've got these big assets, big long life assets scattered across your catchment, it can really get into the detail about how are they over time starting to look, how do they react, how are they behaving, these living structures, how are they behaving?
Right.
And I found that really interesting. And it's your comment about like when you can't beat the human eye. Well, I went to Specsavers, and from my eyesight right now after a year of lockdown, trust me, you can beat the human eye.
Human eyes do deteriorate, unfortunately.
Especially after about 6 of these, the human eye starts to play tricks on you.
I know that there's an urban myth, right? The human eye gets sharper when you're playing pool after about 3 or 4 of those, and then it deteriorates. And
yes, exactly. Yes.
Well,
sorry, go on.
I'm not sure that it gets sharper. I think it's you care less.
Yeah.
The self-perception that it's getting sharper.
Greater rounding error. But I think that one of the things that really took me was when we look at data, do we really understand the value of it? So a number of times when we've been talking with some of our partners and that, we've been talking to clients about geospatial imagery and geospatial data sets. And someone will go, well, I can do that on my phone, right? It's just Google Maps. It's just a map. You talk about the eyes. They're our primary instrument, right? We perceive what we see through our eyes. So when you look at a map, you just go, well, it's a map. And it didn't click for me until I realized that actually what you're seeing is almost irrelevant. It's the data sets that are collected that form the image. And it's the data that underlies the image that is the important stuff that then you produce the analytics and the insights from. You could almost do it without seeing the image. It's the data, it's the raw ingredients that build up that image, the ones and zeros, the different data sets that give you the ability to do these insights.
Right.
And I thought that once that clicked with me, I thought that's really interesting because I got it then. I was like, it's not about what I'm seeing. It's about what the data that we use can tell me, which was 2 different things, I think. And I found that quite interesting. It's just, we pull in all this big data and we, sometimes what you think a piece of data is showing you and what it should be used for isn't what actually it provides the best value for. And it takes a data scientist and a techie guy to explain that to you.
I think it's interesting how you said you likened the asset to an ECG and that it's actually fluctuating over time based on conditions, water levels, that sort of thing. So essentially what the tech can do is point out an anomaly by cross-referencing those multiple data sets. And then, as I mentioned before, kind of tell people where to focus the human eye, even if they had to go to Specsavers, like you mentioned. And
well, carry on the medical analogy. What happens when your ECG, when one of those parameters goes out of tolerance?
right.
The alarm goes off, right? And what happens? A human comes. So it's the same thing, right? You know what the expected behavior an asset needs to be. If these tools are actually showing you and alerting you when things are going out of tolerance, then the human can go and look at it and go, is everything okay? Do I need to do something?
100%. It's a really, that kind of Earth observation space and the use of satellites is really interesting. Likewise, I mean, me and Will are both kind of quite tech geeks as well, so we like to see how that's going. But final kind of
to add on to that, Tom, I think there's an interesting piece that says as we move more into blue-green infrastructure and using nature-based solutions, actually it's not dead concrete, it is living organisms. So you're going to need more of that as we move forward.
Right.
Hey, guys, can I just intervene here for a minute?
Sure.
So the way you're talking about ECGs reminds me of two nations separated by a common language. So in the US, we would refer to that as EKGs.
Yes.
And, we definitely need to follow up at the pub. So anyway.
Yeah, let's not get into linguistics.
Yeah, let's not get into
No, come on.
aluminum versus aluminium. Yeah, we could have I think we should actually have this discussion in the Winchester.
Just having a little bit of fun, guys. And this might be the first thing that we cut out of a clip. So, we'll see.
We can't go against it. No, I think it's a good point. Well, we should probably let's meet. Hang on, how about this? We meet at the Winchester. Okay, we get the article written. Then we can talk about the kind of grammatical differences between the nations.
Oh, no. I just find it fascinating. It's just really fascinating.
It's really interesting.
So is it a different initial? You said ECG, is it actually EKG? Is that what you said? The middle letter is a K?
Well, look, we're really good about destroying any sort of cultural heritage, and that's a whole other episode. But it's
echo. It's echocardiogram, isn't it? ECG, right? So it means that the word is being spelled with a K.
So I will say you are correct. We are wrong. But
we're definitely not going to cut that one out the stream.
No. But I would say I used to be quite a language Nazi. But then I'm married to a Mexican, and obviously Latin American Spanish is very different to Spanish, and you understand that language changes through time.
Yes.
And what's important is the reason it's changed is the culture and the understanding, and ultimately none of it matters provided you can communicate. So that's the key. Is the communication. I don't care what color it is, how many silent letters you guys drop from your words, whether we're making new words up, as long as we understand each other, that's what's important.
There's a really good segue here to the end, right? And hang on, I got it. Give me a second. And benefits of communication are done physically, with those nuances of behavior, with hand gestures, with the way we look, that can only really be done in person when we meet at the pub.
So I was on a call this morning and I was talking about getting my Italian citizenship. And the question was asked, do you speak Italian? And I said, no. And they said, well, you sort of do, and that you wave your hands. So I think I'm on my way, guys.
Non-verbal Italian.
My non-verbal Italian. I know certain words that I got from my grandparents, which were not really good words that I would use in public. So anyway.
Yeah, that the first Spanish I learned was probably the least repeatable.
Often the way, right? Remember a childhood trip across Paris and my father saying, "Parlez-vous anglais?" And if someone said no, we move on to the next person until eventually someone could help him out.
So can I just tell one story there? So Maureen and I were in Paris, and it was the evening. We passed a couple, and I said bonjour, and she smacked her forehead. And both of them were American, and they acknowledged me. So I totally missed the point. But oh well.
I love you.
So Livy, exactly. Well, guys, we've hit that. I think we've gone past that magic 30-minute mark. We could honestly kind of talk for hours on these type of topics. So, Mark, we look forward to the invite to the Winchester and carry on the no collar workforce article. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And Will, any kind of final comments to wrap up from you?
But of course, Tom. I look forward to the Winchester, look forward to advancing the narrative on digital twins, again, to ensure that we, accelerate impact. I mean, we're sort of navigating a brave new world. And Mark, I love how you think about digital and humanity and really reframing the value propositions. So, and look, the Winchester will be absolutely terrific with you guys, but, let's get it on the calendar when we can see each other somewhere in Europe, I'm quite sure.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
100%. Great stuff. All right. Well, Mark, thanks for taking the time for joining us. Appreciate it. And to Will as well. And to everyone listening, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And thanks, guys.
Safe travels, gentlemen. Stay safe.